lots going on this week in the markets. It seems like it was quite a round trip. Basically, we started out with a couple of really strong days, and then came Friday. So, more tug of war, I guess, around where is the Fed headed and how significant are these rate increases going to continue to be, and therefore what is in store in terms of the magnitude of recession.
Well, despite the negative close to the week, the markets actually finished higher. The S&P was up about 1%, small caps up 2%, interest rates rose a little bit. But essentially on Friday, we just got a series of bad news items. One, FedEx warned about slower package growth. Number two, AMD, a key semiconductor company, talked about sluggish PC demand, which we've talked about a lot, that we thought there was a lot of double and triple ordering of semiconductors during that pandemic. And finally, the jobs report was just too strong for Wall Street's liking.
That's the component that the Fed's watching for that to roll over, right? We've already talked about how housing has slowed down pretty significantly. Now durable goods orders and, the chip manufacturing thing is a little bit of an anomaly to me. I don't really understand why auto industry hasn't returned yet, but there's cancellations of semiconductor orders. They're not exactly the same thing, but you would think that the supply would return to normal in those areas.
Well, AMD is more of a PC semiconductor supplier than some of the others, and that really reduced. Well, everyone out and bought a PC during the pandemic so they could go online and go on Instagram and perhaps online learning or whatever else. So there are different segments of semiconductors that are stronger than others. For sure, you highlighted one of the strongest, which would be automotive. But again, there was double ordering because even the auto companies couldn't get the chips they needed.
Yeah, you're right about that. So now we're starting to see, employment being the component still, watched, and we're still adding jobs. So the debate that's raging right now is how in the world can we possibly be in a recession if we're increasing jobs every single month? I don't know how that's going to rectify itself, but if this is the recession right here, it'll be the shallowest recession we've ever experienced, or we're not there yet, and it's in store. It's coming up in the next couple of quarters.
Well, and even the Fed governors would agree with what you just suggested because they know that monetary policy acts with a lag. Higher rates lead to lower mortgage demand, lower housing demand, lower spending around the home, and all sorts of other things. The other thing is, the other employment number that the Fed is focusing on is job openings, and that actually did show a very sharp decline. So we're starting to see a moderation in job growth. That was the weakest jobs report we've seen since April of 2021. So it wasn't as strong as we've seen. So directionally, it's in the Fed's favor, but it's just not enough to cause them not to raise the Fed funds rate by 75 basis points in a couple of weeks.
And we're headed right into earnings season. So that's the next component to this, is to start to see what we're going to hear from corporations as they talk about the last quarter's earnings and, more importantly, the guidance. How are they facing the headwinds that are higher interest rates and tighter monetary policy? And you mentioned that job openings, diminished pretty significantly. So is the next thing going to be layoffs?
Well, it certainly could be. I mean, the Challenger survey showed that there was a 68% rise in layoffs in the past month, which was a very low number, but that is a significant turn. And we've also talked about that job opening situation. A lot of that is poaching. That is people trying to hire people away from other companies. So it's not like they're reducing the labor force, really. They're just trying to shuffle it around. And people that quit their jobs are actually doing quite well in their labor price negotiations.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure. So, but fewer job openings you would think would mean fewer people changing jobs. And doesn't that maybe indicate less upward pressure on wages?
And that's what we saw in that report. We did see a moderation of wage growth. The problem that the Fed has and the problem that frankly, the Biden administration has is that wage increases are not keeping up with the rate of inflation. Now, ultimately, as that CPI starts trending lower to say down to the 3-4% level, perhaps wage growth will actually be increasing in real terms.